chair of the meeting. To begin the meeting, there are 3 minutes of housekeeping. Actually, in the event of emergency, there are no practice alarms planned for this meeting, so if the alarm is sound, please evacuate the City Hall by going down the main staircase led by War Memorial in front of the City Hall. This meeting is being live streamed to the Council's YouTube page and will be available after the meeting. Please, will speakers use the microphones at all times and speak directly into the microphone, and will participants please mute the microphones when not speaking. We'll go around introductions now, and we'll start with the members and then move on to the officers. On my left is
Councillor Mike Sanders.
Councillor Ash Hayes.
Councillor Jenny Knight.
Councillor Richard Laws.
Councillor Carly Harper. Councillor Amanda.
Councillor Charlie Gay.
Councillor Amanda Fox.
Councillor Judith Lubbock.
and the officers start.
Good morning, I'm David Parkin, I'm the Development Manager.
Oh, I think there's one too many microphones on somewhere. Try that again. There we go.
Good morning. I'm Gemma Rooney and I'm the Senior Planning Officer.
Leonie Berwick, Senior Committee Officer.
Thank you for that. Members of the committee may use electrical devices to access their meeting papers, and visitors are welcome to use their mobile phones and other devices, including cameras. But please use them discreetly and set them to silent to not use voice or camera flash functions. We will have a short break at 12, hopefully we'll be finished before then, and another one at 1 o'clock to 2 o'clock if there's any business to be resolved. Okay, we'll move straight on to the agenda now. Apologies for absence.
We've had apologies from Councillors Oliver and Smith, and there's no substitutes.
Thank you. And declarations of interest. Councillor Lubbock.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I did object to this application, and therefore I will withdraw myself. But I do wish to speak for 3 minutes on the application.
Yep.
Withdraw myself from voting.
Okay. Any other declarations, anyone? No, thank you. We'll move on to the planning application now, and there's only one on the agenda, and it's a bungalow in Chase. And I ask Gemma Rooney to present the report to the committee, please.
Thank you, Chair. The proposal is for outline consent, including matters of access, appearance, layout and scale for a single dwelling to be considered. Just for clarity, while the address point is labelled as the bungalow, the land subject to the application site is on land to the south of the bungalow, as you'll see in a moment. So this is the red line plan for the planning application. Members will note the long connection to the public highway, where access will be taken off Unflanked Road via Eaton Chase here. Eaton Chase is a private drive. On the overhead here, I've just marked the application site with the star in the middle, and then that's the bungalow to the north, reference the address point. So just to the west, just to the east of the application site, you've got Ryrie Court, which is a sheltered housing accommodation for elderly people. And then over to the west of the site, you've got Blakeney Close, which is all two-storey residential properties. So I've included this plan in the presentation to give members an understanding of the development that's previously been accepted on site. This does include the entirety of the land, so land including the bungalow to the north of the application site. That's not subject to this application. It's to make you aware of a previous permission, which is a material consideration, although it's no longer extant. That previous permission, hopefully you can just about make out on the land to the south, which is the application site we're looking at, did grant consent for a single dwelling, and that approved the scale of that dwelling as well. That was proposed as a 4 to 5 bedroom house with an eaves height of 5.4 metres and a ridge height of 8.6 metres. The current application in front of members today is for a 5 bedroom house with an eaves height of 6.2 metres and a ridge height of 8.7 metres. So the plan on the screen here is the layout proposed site plan, so we are considering layout for this application. Landscape isn't for consideration, but I want to note to members that there is an existing TPO on the site, and works under this application include some amendments to that TPO, which includes mitigation planting for removal and replanting of a group of trees, which the tree officer has confirmed acceptance to. There's further amendments to that TPO, including crown raising and lifting of 2 further trees. Again, the trees officer has confirmed acceptance to those works. Due to the size of the site, it's considering that landscaping could be appropriately secured through the future reserve matters application. No bin and cycle storage has been shown on this plan here, but as you can see, there's more than sufficient room to condition these details. Neighbour comments have noted some concerns regarding vehicular access, only if this were to be taken via Ryrie Court, which is to the north up here. There is a small pedestrian access point under this application, but the main vehicular access will be via Eaton Chase, therefore addressing those concerns from neighbours. A condition would also be applied to the planning application, which you can see set out in the report, which would restrict construction access to the site via Ryrie Court, so ensuring that all construction vehicles would come via Eaton Chase. So, as I said, the site would be accessed via Eaton Chase off Unthank Road, and that access onto Unthank Road is in this image at the top here. And then the access of Eaton Chase into the site is in this bottom image, and that's the site, just where the cursor is there. The highways officer noted that the proposal would not affect the current traffic patterns or free flow of traffic, and acknowledged that that previous approval, which I showed you earlier, established the acceptability of the access via Eaton Chase. Surface material of the site access itself would be secured via planning permission. The photos on the screen here just show the context of the site in relation to the neighbouring property of the bungalow. So in this image here, we're looking onto the application site in the foreground there. The new dwelling will be situated around 11.5 metres away from this shared boundary, so where this existing fence is. And that distance is furthered when you consider the window-to-window distances between the proposed dwelling and the existing bungalow, which would create a distance of approximately 20 metres, meaning that overshadowing would be minimised to that bungalow. On the proposed plans, which I'll show you in a moment, you'll note that the windows to the rear of the proposed dwelling are all proposed to be obscurely glazed, so this will assist in minimising the perceived sense of overlooking, but again you've got the 20 metre separation distance to also help diminish views. So concerns were raised by neighbours at Blakeney Close, and you can just about very, very slightly make out a dwelling here, which is on Blakeney Close itself. So between the front elevation of the proposed dwelling and this nearest neighbouring property on Blakeney Close, there's approximately 25 metres. So officers are satisfied that again views would be diminished, meaning that there wouldn't be significant loss of privacy to those neighbours. As I said, appearance is a matter for consideration, and amendments were sought during the application. The design on the screen here demonstrates appropriate proportions, detailing and materiality, ensuring coherent and visually balanced design. The dwelling is of a larger scale, however it wouldn't appear cramped given the size of the site, and it's also noted that many of the dwellings along Unthank Road are of a similar scale and a similar plot size. I also want to reiterate here the proposed scale that we're looking at here isn't dissimilar to what was previously considered acceptable under the previous planning application, and the overall ridge height would be increased by 0.1 metres, so really not looking at a very different scale here. These floor plans give a bit more detail in terms of the use and location of the windows that I previously referenced. So these are the first floor windows at the rear, which would all be obscurely glazed, so you've got ensuite, bathroom, study and a bedroom. Whilst there is a bedroom that would have an obscurely glazed window, it's considered that given this is a 5-bedroom house and the overall outlook wouldn't be too affected, that the overall amenity of the dwelling wouldn't be significantly impacted by the fact of that single bedroom alone having an obscurely glazed window. The dwelling would comply with minimum space standards, and due to the orientation of the plot and the placement of the windows, the dwelling would receive adequate natural light to all habitable rooms. Finally, as we are considering appearance under this application, I just wanted to show you the elevations of the proposed garage, which would be located between the rear of the dwelling and the neighbouring bungalow to the north. This is considered of an appropriate scale and in proportion with the host dwelling, and this would also accommodate parking for 2 vehicles. So for the reasons set out in the planning report in front of you, it's considered that the proposed development accords with all relevant national and local planning policies, and it would not result in significant detrimental harm in respect of relevant material planning considerations. Members are therefore recommended to approve the application, subject to the conditions set out in paragraph 119 of the officer report. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman, for that. Move on to opposition speakers, and just Judith, I believe. You have 3 minutes, Judith.
From here.
Yeah, if you want, yeah.
Thank you, Chair. The site of application before you today has had a checkered history since 2022. The site has changed from 4 dwellings on the site to just 1, and for that we have the planning officers to thank for resisting the overdevelopment of this garden site. These changes over the last 3 years has brought much anxiety from the neighbouring properties, concerned for the health of the trees on the site, the proximity of the dwellings to theirs, and the potential for overlooking and the access to the site. The neighbours are those who live in Blakeney Close to the west, the newly refurbished bungalow, which was the original dwelling on the site, to the north, and the sheltered housing scheme of 45 bungalows to the east. Taking the occupants of the bungalow first, their main concern is the close proximity of the garage and the house to their boundary, and they would prefer the siting of the dwelling to have a more central position in the plot. Blakeney Close residents whose boundaries abut the site are concerned for the maintenance of the trees and any new planting. They ask who will be overseeing that the trees are adequately maintained. They feel they are very important to provide the privacy and the separation from the new build to their properties. Rari Court residents also have concerns about the maintenance of the current trees, some with the TPOs, which overhang their small gardens, making them very dark. Recently, a bough from one fell on the roof of an elderly man's bungalow, breaking a tile. He was left to deal with the consequences of getting repaired through the council. There is also concern about the pedestrian access shown on the plans. There is no pedestrian access there now, other than extending the vehicular access from the bungalow. So if you look at page 28, it just shows where a new pedestrian access is placed, but this vehicular access that is next to it was also once pedestrian access to the bungalow and was somehow extended to be a vehicular access, allowing cars, vans and delivery lorries to drive into a car park of the sheltered housing scheme for 45 individual bungalows, clashing for space with the many care workers, doctors and delivery vehicles serving the residents. Objections to this pedestrian access becoming a vehicular access were lost, and I do not want the same thing to happen again. This is a small car park, and having more traffic onto it could become dangerous for the elderly. So what I would like, as the residents of Rari Court would also like, is to receive assurances that if this access is allowed, it will not morph into a vehicular access and allow more vehicles into the car park that they now currently have. Finally, my objection is to the design, not the scale, but the design of this large 5-bedroom house. In the report, it's described as a pastiche, but acceptable. I agree with the word pastiche, but I do not think it is acceptable. The design gives it great prominence in this garden setting, with an unacceptable impact on neighbouring properties. As a one-off dwelling, no effort has been made to make it fit into the site. It's to be conventional brick built with a pitched roof, and we've heard, with a ridge height of 8.7 metres. It is so disappointing not to see a more contemporary design which would give more prominence to the possibility of low carbon materials, energy conservation and regeneration. I can only hope that when final plans are received, it does contain water efficiency measures such as water butts, underground tanks, grey water use, solar panels, heat source pumps to mitigate the effects of this off-the-peg design, more suited to an estate than a garden site. Thank you.
Thank you, Judith. Gemma, did you want to come back on any of the points Councillor Lovett raised? Can you just turn the mic off for me? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to respond to a couple of points there, just to alleviate any potential concerns. We are considering the application in front of us today, so any potential discussion on alternative designs, we're not looking at that. So members are reminded we are looking at the design in front of us today. Whilst you know, it's absolutely the applicant's choice as to what design they put forward. I would also remind members that Eaton Chase is a private drive, and there's quite a few dwellings along there. If I can just skip the overhead, I don't know if there's any. So you just about see one here, and there's a couple further down as well that are large dwellings on large sites, and so there's no distinct character itself for Eaton Chase. In terms of any trees causing impacts to neighbouring properties, as I said, there's already existing TPO trees on the site. They broadly remain unchanged other than the mitigation planting for removal and replanting of a group of trees. However, any potential damage to neighbouring landowners is outside of a planning consideration. There was one more thing. I just wanted to mention again regarding the potential vehicular access that was referenced by Councillor Lubbock to the north. That isn't part of this application. So again, members are reminded we are only considering the acceptability of the pedestrian access to the north there. There was a previous appeal on this site which considers that any access from Ryrie Court into the site would be unacceptable in terms of highways impact. Again, that is a material consideration. So any future application, if they were to consider any potential introduction of vehicular access, would have to consider that previous appeal decision also. However, officers generally felt that a pedestrian access serving a single dwelling alone wouldn't be materially felt by neighbours. Councillor Lubbock also mentioned the impact of the construction traffic when the bungalow was, when there was an extension built on the bungalow, but again, that doesn't form part of our consideration for this application. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. Dave, you want to say?
Yeah, just to pick up on a couple of points, one of which Gemma's already touched on about pedestrian access. Access is one of the matters that we're looking at today. So what you see on the screen is what we're approving. If something happens and an attempt is made to create vehicular access from Ryrie Court, then that will be in breach of at least two of the conditions which we're proposing you attach. That's condition 3, that it should be completed in accordance with the approved plans, and condition 12, the on-site parking and turning areas be laid out and demarcated. So an attempt to actually use that access would be a breach of condition. Councillor Lubbock also asked on concerns about the maintenance of the trees and other planting on the site. Essentially, that maintenance is the responsibility of the landowner, and that won't change. It will just be the responsibility of a residential landowner. So this planning application doesn't really change who is responsible for the maintenance of the trees.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on to questions. I've got one to start with. Who owns the land and the driveway all the way down there? Do that go with the new building? Do that stay with the bungalow people, or can someone else just come on and say, oh, I think I want building on a house further down? Because it's different, owned by a different person.
So in terms of land ownership, the red line plan would indicate that the applicant either owns all of the land or has served notice on other people that own the land. So in terms of the driveway to Eton Chase, that would likely be owned by multiple landowners, if not someone else, but notice would have been served on them. The applicant has also advised officers that they have legal rights to access the land via Eton Chase for construction traffic, but I can't preempt what may or may not come in the future in terms of future applications, unfortunately.
Okay, so if a landowner want to come on and do something to the trees, maintenance, he can just turn up on a Wednesday morning and go in and do it, can he?
Providing it's not impacting any of the TPO trees, which would require our consent.
Okay, any questions, anyone? Councillor George.
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple actually, just for clarification really. So what was the most recent approved planning application that didn't go through again, just to confirm? Or, sorry, it wasn't implemented, it was approved, not? Sorry?
You have to turn yours off.
Sorry, mine doesn't work otherwise. So, as Councillor Lubbock alluded to, there is quite a complex planning history here. This application on the screen in front of you was approved in 2019. That was for a different scheme where they sought permission to put 4 dwellings on the land to the north, which is where the bungalow is at the moment, and then a single dwelling on this land, which is subject to the application site. The bungalow has since had a planning application for an extension, which has been implemented. So they haven't implemented this previous permission, and the time has now lapsed on that. So there would be no way that they can implement this permission that was granted in 2019. So the only permissions that have been implemented are the extension works to the bungalow, and then obviously we're considering this live application now. There was a variation application to the previous 2018 application to change the access to access it all via Ryrie Court, but that was resisted at appeal. So that was never allowed. So the only one that was previously allowed was this one that is on your screen here. Like I say, it has now lapsed, but it is material that we previously deemed that this was an acceptable proposal.
We also had a site visit there as well. I know I was there, Judith was there, and a couple of others.
Thank you. Could I just also ask, again, most of interest really, but on the plan on page 28 of the papers, it shows the, one side, I guess, of the garage abutting the boundary with the bungalow land, if I can put it that way. Is there any particular reason why it was designed to go right up to the boundary, or could it come a few metres south or down the page, as it were?
So I don't know why the particular reason was chosen there. However, there are a lot of tree constraints on the site, and any works within root protection areas would be quite difficult to implement. So I imagine that's why it's been developed in this way with the design proposals in front of you. Obviously, by putting the lower building to the rear nearest the bungalow, that obviously alleviates any concerns about potential overshadowing and overbearing onto that land to the bungalow. Potentially there would have been scope to bring the dwelling further forward into further to the south of the site, but again I don't know what repercussions would have had on the trees on the site if that were the case.
Thank you.
Any other questions from anyone? No, in that case we'll move on to discussions and any recommendations from members, if they want to bring them up, and they need a seconder as well. Any discussion, anyone? Okay, I'll move the recommendation then, is to approve, and I'll move up, I need a seconder, thank you, once hands. Move to the vote. All those in favour, please show. That's unanimous, thank you. And that brings us to the end of the planning committee. Nice and early.